I want to make another video about some other angle on Vladimir Putin that you're not looking at. A lot of things like people don't realize, like maybe they do or they don't. Depends on who I'm talking to on here. But, a lot of Russia's money comes from oil money, right? Oil, the sale of oil. And they're a large oil producer, but they don't use that much oil domestically. Not like they don't use the same amount of oil, anywhere near the same amount of oil per capita as in the United States. A lot of Russians don't even drive a car. I mean, when you look on the internet, you see Moscow and there's all these cars and some people with a lot of money. But that's kind of not typical of all around Russia. A lot of Russians don't have a lot of money, right? They drive, maybe they don't drive that much, right? So a lot of the oil revenues are gotten from export of oil. Now, that is also, oil is actually key to what happens in Russia in a lot of ways. Even when Russia fell, I know it was like a planned collapse. If you look at Major Golitsyn, former KGB Major Golitsyn, he said there was a planned collapse of Russia coming about, and it happened in the late 80s. But it happened, really where it happened, the catalyst for it was the oil prices. Oil prices dropped a lot. Russia lost a lot of revenue, and they could not keep up with all their military spending and all that stuff, and they went broke. This is actually the key to Vladimir Putin's power. Big time. Big time. Actually, when oil has gone up quite a bit, actually it's stayed pretty damn high the whole time he's been in power. He has a major interest in keeping oil prices high. Therefore, he also has a major interest in keeping tensions in the Middle East high, despite the way he talks. He encourages, he almost gives the nod to Israel to go attack Iran, but it's not like he just wants tensions in the Middle East because oil is going to go up. Oil is going to go up. But just to give you a little idea of how he played his power trip, if you remember, well, you remember like when, let's go even before him, when Gorbachev was around. The Western elite and the Russian elite have always worked together. But there's always this thing where they don't necessarily have to work together. Somebody else can be a little more ambitious than somebody else and want more power than the other guy. It's like they work together more or less, but not exactly perfectly, right? But to give you an idea how much they do work together, like during the time when Gorbachev was still president, there was actually people elitists in the United States. This thing was given by the government because they had the Presidio, which overlooked it was in the San Francisco Hills. It was an old established naval base that was closed down. It actually went back to the Spanish. It was so old, right? But it was very prestigious. They gave that whole complex in that old established building, which was like, it had a lot of historical wealth too, to Gorbachev before then. And they called it something else. They didn't call it the Gorbachev USA Foundation at that time. Then after Gorbachev formally stepped down from because they couldn't do it while he was they couldn't give it to a president of a foreign power at the time. This is our elite, the governmental elite doing this. They couldn't give it to a president of a foreign power at that time. They gave it, but he got it basically where they changed the name. They used to have another name under it before, but then the label on it afterwards said Gorbachev USA Foundation. Basically a communist front organization, that's really what it is. It all has to do with globalism and environmentalism and all this type of stuff. But that Presidio, located outside of San Francisco in the hills, which is a former military installation, was given to Gorbachev while he was president. That's how well they worked together. Now, later on, when Yeltsin, I think Yeltsin and Putin were sharing power at a particular time. I don't know if it was around 2000, I think it was. There was this incident, and it reminds me of the Reichstag fire with Hitler. They had this apartment building, 4 apartment buildings blow up, and immediately it was blamed on Chechen rebels, right? And Putin went out there and made a big show that he's going to go after him, and all the Russian people were like, oh yeah, go get him, go get him. Then later on they found out that the explosives used in blowing up these four apartment buildings were actually very high-tech explosives that were only available to the FSB. The FSB succeeded to KGB. So in other words, they were high-tech explosives that no Chechen rebels would have had. And they were placed in strategic parts of the building where, in other words, you had to really know what you're doing. They were placed in such a way that they would cause the most amount of damage, most amount of casualties. They were timed perfectly, and it was the most high-tech explosives, not available to rebels. So basically, it was pretty much proven that the terrorist attack, quote unquote, against the native Russians by supposedly Chechen rebels was actually done by the government, the Russian government. So they got stuff going on over there, just like over here that's being accused. So I don't know why people over here are getting behind this guy like he's somebody good. He's just a shrewd player. That's all he is. Well, after the 4 apartment buildings were blown up, he had a declared war on Chechens and against Chechnya. Had all these Chechen Russian citizens that were of ethnic Chechen background rounded up in Russia because they were suspects. Had them hauled off and all this type of stuff. And it was really just for his own power. This stuff actually came from the FSB, from the KGB, if you want to say it that way, which was later called the FSB. Actually, the FSB is more powerful than the old KGB. It's even more centralized. It's just that right now there's not as much stuff going on in the open as under Stalin times or something like that. That's the only difference. But they actually got more power. But there is stuff going on. So basically that was Putin's Reichstag fire incident that propelled him into power. Then later on, he did he did this against Mikhail Khodorkovsky, who's still in jail today. He had Yukos Oil. He's formerly the richest guy in Russia. And Mikhail Khodorkovsky, I'm saying his name correctly, I believe, actually was criticizing Putin at different times. Like Boris Berezovsky, in London, who hung himself even though he had $500 million, right? Net worth. That he didn't hang himself. Putin got him somehow. That's really what the hell's going on there for sure. But, you can't prove it somehow or another. It's just too, it's like anything else. But anybody that criticizes this guy, something happens with him, right? But Mikhail Khodorkovsky had Yukos Oil. He was the most wealthy guy in Russia. Then all of a sudden, the government, run by Putin, accuses him of $27 billion tax fraud. $27 billion. They can't pay it. It's a ridiculous amount of money. And, before they even, figured out, did the trial and everything, which is a big show trial, they had him in this little cage. He had to crouch down. He had him like an animal in a cage, like he was, I don't know, Charles Manson or some shit. You know what I mean? He was being accused of tax fraud, and it was so big that it brought the whole company down. So what happened is Rosneft bought out Yukos Oil because it was, it got destroyed. Its stocks basically got destroyed. So they acquired everything, right? So Rosneft is like a big, that's one of Putin's things out there, Gazprom and Rosneft. Well, what's going on here recently, or more recently, this last year I think it is, or less than last year, there's going to be this planned merger or some type of between BP and Rosneft. See, what the problem is with the Russian oil and Rosneft is that they don't have the technology to get the oil out of the ground that that Russia actually has in the ground. So they're losing money. So they want, infusion of capital and technology from BP of how to do it. So they got negotiations going on. But ultimately, this may put Russia in as, well, they have been in 1 year, like the top oil producers, but it's going to actually be maybe even more than that. Because if oil goes way up in price due to tensions in the Middle East, that will keep Putin in power. You see what I'm saying? And if he's got even more control over, there's more oil assets coming out of Russia than there was before because of, influence of technology from BP and stuff, with some kind of merger deal or whatever the hell they're doing, it's actually going to give even more power to Russia. That will be the largest, if they merge BP with Rosneft, that will be the largest oil company in the world. And it looks like Vladimir Putin's going to be pretty much running that. Okay? Well, at least that's how he wants it to happen. Now, combine that with his strategic alliance with Iran, who has the second largest natural gas resources in the world, whereas Russia has the largest, and also all the vast crude oil reserves that Iran has. He could pretty much control the price of oil. Not the United States, not OPEC, not the United States or anything, but he could. So his game is actually the same as the old New World Order, and to do the same thing, except it's going to be under his hat. He's going to control it. And along with that, it may be the global reserve currency. It may be the global reserve currency. See, this is where I think this guy has some extreme ambitions, and they're basically the same type of thing that everybody's scared about with the Western elite, but he's going to be doing the same thing, except he wants it under his control, and that's going to keep him in power. Now, some of the guys he's actually been behind, like Assad, they call him President Assad of Syria, president, right? He's been president since 2000. That's not a president when you've been president that long, right? I mean, that's where Obama gets his idea when he's president. No, that doesn't work that way in the United States. Assad has actually been, he's been a part of a lot of damn things that are against the people in Syria. He rules with an iron fist, too. I know the rebels are screwed up. I know that. But, Assad screwed up, too. And Assad got his power from his father, who ran the country for 30 years, from 1970 around about that to 2000. Then the son took over. Okay? So, I mean, it's been in the hands of these two people for decades and decades and decades. That's not a democratic society. Now, I also know that, the Muslim Brotherhood aren't democratic in any way either. But the thing is, when Vladimir Putin talks about peace in the Middle East, it's all about show. This guy does not want peace. Why? Because peace means lower oil prices. High tensions in war means high oil prices. He would rather have high oil prices and also have the technology from BP and control Rosneft and be in control of the world's largest oil company in the world. And that would be a lot of power to him. A lot of power. So this guy is not like what you think he is, and I don't know how the hell to say it, but he's worse than the New World Order. Actually, he's worse. He's kind of against the New World Order because he's for number one. That's the difference. But he's probably even worse. I think he's very much worse, because in the West, if people woke up in the West, they wake up halfway anyway. If people in the West actually, took part in what the hell they're supposed to take part in the government, and just been a little more aware of what's going on, they can change things really fast. It's not the system that's the problem. It's just that a lot of people in the West are pretty lethargic and apathetic. That's the problem, right? In Russia, the people really can't do crap about it, man. They're screwed, man. They're really screwed. Now I heard that sometimes, it's like, I'm grateful that somebody like KGB Major Anatoliy Golitsyn defected in 1961, because, if we had a lot of Russians like that, and Yuri, I forgot the guy's name, there's another one that warns us about different things. But if we had a lot of Russians like that come over to the United States that are against, the Putin regime or whatever the hell it is, and the stuff that's going on there, they would be very good in waking up Americans. They would be very good, because they understand what's going on. But it's almost like trying to tell dead wood what the hell's going on, because a lot of Americans, they live in a, you know, a shield, and they don't realize it. It's not an armchair debate. It's actually, if once that bad system comes into play, you're screwed. You're not going to undo it very easily. It's going to have to collapse due to some kind of economic conditions or something like that. And if that happens, there's going to be a lot of people that die. But Putin actually reminds me of a type of Adolf Hitler. I mean, he's got that correlation between, you know, Adolf Hitler had the Reichstag fire, and Putin has his bombing by the Chechen rebels. Both those events were staged. And, you know, I said before, you know, I don't want to, like, you know, blatantly give every single person that's Jewish like a, you know, you're perfect, you know. I mean, I'm against Feinstein and Bloomberg and Chuck Schumer, right? But Putin seems to me to be anti-Semitic. Big time. Big time. Like, when he tells, like, Netanyahu, go attack, you know, yeah, that's okay to go, he basically gives him a nod to go attack Iran. He basically, what he's doing there, he's setting them up. He's setting them up. Yeah, I think, you know, if there ever is an attack on Iran by Israel, that Iran is actually going to get clobbered, because Israel does have a lot of capabilities, besides not just with planes, but they also have them with submarines and stuff. But I don't want people to get all anti-Israeli. Really. I know they don't do everything perfect, you know, but overall, they're better than the rest of the guys out there. Let me put it that way. So, but Putin, he's playing a very shrewd game. He actually wants tensions in the Middle East. It's going to be good to keep his power, because tensions in the Middle East are going to cause the price of oil to go up, and it looks like this Rosneft is now going to be merged in with BP, and it's going to be the largest oil producing company in the world. And he's going to have a major, you know, he's going to have his hooks into that big time. And it's going to actually help Russia to produce a lot more oil than they are now, with all the technology that they're going to get. This has been in the works for a little while, but it's probably going to come about. It's probably going to come about. So, just don't get behind Vladimir Putin like an idiot and think that he's the savior, because, you know, it's almost like that Who song, meet the old boss, same as the new, you know, the new boss, same as the old boss. Well, the new boss is going to even be worse, because if Russia has the game where they can collapse the West through destroying its currency, you know, the Western currency, and have the world reserve currency backed by a conglomerate of currencies like the ruble, the Russian ruble, the Chinese yuan, and some other currencies in the Pacific theater, they're going to basically take America and just use it like, you know, for garbage. And nobody, and everything over here is going to be basically expendable. And if you live here and you think that's okay, well, you totally disagree with me, because I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree with that at all. Despite all the crap that America did that wasn't perfect, actually the United States has actually done a hell of a lot better job than, if you start looking at a lot of these other countries. If they had the same power as the United States, they would have already used it militarily. It's a fact. It's a fact. The United States is really not that bad at all. Not that bad at all. You just don't appreciate it till you see something much, much worse come about. And it looks like this guy Putin is he's playing a game. He's playing a game. He's acting like the incorruptible politician. He's greedy as all hell. He keeps grabbing more and more power in Russia. You know, anybody that's criticizes him, their companies get ruined and stuff, just like what happened to Mikhail. Anybody that criticizes him and lives in the UK, they wind up hanging themselves in the bathroom. You know, this type of stuff. And I think he's desperate to hang on to power. But the only way he's going to do that is through high oil prices. And the only way he's going to have high oil prices is through a lot of tensions in the Middle East. He's talking peace, but he ain't about a peace, man. He's not about peace. I don't know if I can reach enough people with this exactly, but It's like money talks, man. And this guy's about money and power. Money talks. That's what he's about, man. He's just a smooth player, man. I could see right through him, no problem. I could see right through him. Easy. I mean, it's simple. I don't know why people can't, but I can. I can very easily. Money talks. And this guy's got some serious bucks. He controls a lot. He could basically controls all the oil and natural gas practically in Russia. He's probably more wealthy than anybody in the whole entire globe. And he's going to have a lot more than that. So, as long as people don't realize what he's about, he's going to keep going. He's going to keep going. I think most people think he's a reformer and a man of peace. Man, they are so freaking wrong, it's unbelievable.